Highlanders were once famed for their amazing endurance and ability to travel long distances with very little food. Were they superhuman, or did they have a trick up their sleeves? Well, I've come across many historical references that mention the Highlanders chewing on the roots of a particular plant, which, even in small doses, was said to suppress their hunger and give them energy while on the move. So naturally, I wanted to see if this was true. So join me in this video as we delve into history and I search for this elusive plant. Then, with a sporran full of roots, I partake in a 36-hour food fast, an overnight journey in the barren bog with nothing but these tubers to chew on. Are these a forgotten superfood? Or is it a complete myth? Well, stay tuned and let's find out. This experiment is for educational purposes only. Please don't try this at home. You can find the extended edition of this experiment over on my Patreon page, linked below. Hi folks, Tom Fandabi Dozi, thanks for tuning in. So every month I set these wilderness challenges or learning prompts for the members of my online school, Resilient Roots, and then we discuss and share what we've learned on monthly live calls. And the challenge that I set a couple of months back was go out and learn 5 wild edible plants in your local area, and I gave people bonus points if they made some sort of recipe or survival ration from the stuff they'd foraged. And when I was preparing my own part of the challenge, I rediscovered this book that's been sitting on my bookshelf ever since I started this Highland history learning journey. It's called Healing Threads, Traditional Medicines of the Highlands and Islands, written by Mary Beath. And as I was skimming through it, looking at what I'd made notes of or dog-eared, I came across this mythical vetch. Now, I did briefly mention this vetch in one of my very first Highland plant videos, but I've never actually tried it, and despite having lots of friends who forage, I don't actually know anyone who's tried it, or certainly no one who's actually tried to test some of the virtues it's claimed to have. So this magical tuberous plant in English is called the bitter vetch. In Latin, it's Lythyrus linifolius. There seems to be a few Gaelic names for it, but according to this book, the Gaelic is Caracan. Now, although Mary mentions many different plants in this book, this particular plant seems to have the most historical quotes attached to it, and she even explains why. Quote, "No apologies are made for writing and quoting about this plant at length, since it has fallen into a strange neglect, and it seems to me it is ripe for investigation." I'm here for you, Mary. "And perhaps a revival if grown commercially. As late as the 1950s, it is being gathered by older people in the north of Scotland for infusion in a home-brewed heather ale. Now it is virtually unknown, even by those with otherwise good memories of the old ways with plants." So, she's saying that it used to be used so much, but then for some reason it has fallen out of knowledge. She starts talking about the vetch with this. "This plant's properties are highly esteemed by the Gaels and by the ancient Celts before them." She does mention some other folk who say that the Romans mentioned the Highlanders eating these tubers. I dove into it to try find it. There's no direct quotes from the Romans. Moving on in time, once again, Martin, who was visiting the Highlands in the late 17th century, he writes this about it. "Carmel," which is another name for it, "has a blue flower in July. The plant itself is not used, but the root is eaten to expel wind." Good to know. "And they say it prevents drunkenness. By frequent chewing of it, and being so used, gives a good relish to all liqueurs, milk only excepted. It is aromatic, and the natives prefer it to spice for brewing aquavitae. The root will keep for many years, and some say it is a cordial and allays hunger." We have another quote here from someone called John Lightfoot, writing in 1777. He says, quote, "The Highlanders have a great esteem for these tubercles of the roots. They dry and chew them in general to give a better relish to their liqueur. They also affirm them to be good against most diseases of the thorax, and that by the use of them, they are enabled to repel hunger and thirst for a long time." The final quote I'll share about this magical vetch was written in the 1800s by a Welsh traveller called Thomas Pennant. "Among the useful plants, the cor, or corymyal, must not be omitted. These roots, dried, are the support of the Highlanders in long journeys amidst the barren hills, destitute of the supports of life, and a small quantity, like the alimentary powders, will for a long time repel attacks of hunger. Infused in liqueur, it is an agreeable beverage, and like the naphthalene of the Greeks, accelerates the mind. So looking at all these quotes, there's actually quite a lot of myth-busting potential in this. I could test if it stops me farting, if it stops me getting drunk, if it cures diseases of the thorax. But a commonality between all the quotes is this mention of it repelling hunger and somehow allowing Highlanders to travel a long way without eating in the barren moor. Now that sounds like something I could test. So if I'm going to test this myth, I first need to find some of these magical tubers. Now, vetch is a word used to describe a few plants that are all in the pea family. We have a few different species of vetch here in Scotland, but the bitter vetch has some unique characteristics that we need to look out for if we're going to find it. First of all, it has winged stems. It has no tendrils on the leaves. The leaves come in 2 to 4 pairs of narrow leaflets. The flowers are small red-pink flowers that tend to fade into blue and white. They're usually found on woodland edges and sort of the edges of grasslands, sort of rough grazing. They will flower between May and July, and they have tiny underground tubers, which is what we're looking for. So, I'm gonna go hunting around this sort of habitat. I think I've seen some, and then I'm going to try and dig up these tubers. I've never done this before. There's quite a lot of it here. Found a wee patch. Let's see if I can dig up this guy without damaging his root. Man, that's already probably like 30 centimeters of root following. Still can't find it. I might have found it. I'm going to have to pull it back through its own roots. Ah, the mythical tuber! I found it. Only took about, I don't know, 40 centimetre, 1.5 foot of root. So after digging up that first one, which took me a while, I decided as a bit of an experiment to see how many I could dig up in an hour. And I've managed to almost fill a small bowl. But yeah, quite labour intensive. I tried using a garden fork to see if that helped, but to be honest, that was a bit too aggressive. I would just end up breaking the roots and lose the tubers. What I found was easiest was just finding a clump of them and pull back an entire big bit of turf and then access the tubers from the turf side. But still, yeah, took quite a lot of energy and time. Now, a word of warning, I have double checked to make sure that there's no other tuberous plants in this environment that are toxic, so there's nothing that I'm going to mistaken this for and accidentally poison myself. So just be careful, like everything in foraging. Also, another disclaimer, for foraging any sort of tubers, of course, it's quite destructive. It's okay to dig for 1 and 2 just to try it, but yeah, if everyone was digging up all of these, and of course there'd be nothing left. So let's give them a wash and remove the roots and actually see how many are there. I'm in a love heart shape with tentacles coming off it. 7, 38, 39, 40, 41, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Exactly 50 tubers gathered in an hour. Alright, moment of truth. They've kind of got this black skin, kind of like a pig nut. You see that? Scrape some of that skin off. Initial taste is much like your normal green pea, which makes sense, they're in the pea family. Oh yeah, with a slight licorice aftertaste. Interesting. Now the references just say chewed, they didn't say swallowed, but a slight floral aftertaste as well. Do you know what? I'm actually pleasantly surprised. That's not bad tasting at all. But does it have a hunger suppressant? Does it have all those benefits that the quotes say they do about fueling Highlanders on big journeys across the barren bog, not eating anything else? That's yet to be seen. For this experiment, I wanted to try fast for at least 24 hours, and I thought if I have breakfast today, the weather might turn tomorrow, I might need to come back early. So I figured to make sure I at least still fast 24 hours, I haven't had breakfast this morning, other than my morning coffee, because you know, coffee. I've already fasted for about 14 hours. It was about 9:30 last night, the last time I ate. So I'm going on this journey anyway as part of this historical navigation challenge. But I thought for this bitter vetch challenge, I'll just check in every 3 hours or so and I'll give you a scale of how hungry I am, 1 to 10. 1 is not hungry at all, feel quite satiated, and 10, I'm absolutely ravenous, I could eat a baby sort of hungry. So right now, before I've even started, 4 on the hungry scale. So before I start, I think I'll start chewing on one of these wee tuberous guys. Let's see if it works. Tuber experiment update. I've been walking about 4 hours. I chewed my last tuber about 45 minutes ago. I did notice a slight kind of relief in mental clarity, a slight kind of sugar to the mind. Hunger level, it's funny, I almost feel like I need to separate mental hunger from physical hunger. Potentially the tubers have helped the mental hunger a little bit. I looked down and I just realised that I'm actually sitting amongst them. It's funny how I've never really noticed it until this experiment. Let me show you. This little guy. It's harder to spot without the flower, but I'm pretty sure that's bitter vetch, 2 to 4. There's quite a few here. They seem to like to grow where tormentil grows. This is tormentil, this yellow flower. Yeah, you could potentially just be digging this up on your as you go. Let's see actually if I can find one in there. Well, there you go. Isn't it funny? I've travelled in this environment countless times and I've never really noticed these wee guys. These wee tubers have been underneath me all the whole time. About 5 hours since I left camp. Just chewing on another tuber. And yeah, I can understand some of the historical references describing it kind of like chewing gum, because it's got quite a tough, leathery skin that you definitely don't really want to swallow. But it's amazing if you just keep chewing it, you keep extracting some of that licorice flavour. Refreshed. What was this in my mind? Okay, so it's 7 in the evening. It's been 22 hours since my last meal. Energy wise, yeah, I'm definitely starting to fantasize about food. I can feel it in my stomach. Probably the last one I chewed was 20 minutes ago. And they give something. Although the tubers, they're almost tricking my mind and my stomach to tell me that I'm not hungry, but my muscles are telling me that I am. Aye, hunger rating now. Not gonna lie, it's probably like 8. So it's 9 o'clock. I've officially been chewing on nothing but tubers for 24 hours. It's gonna take me a good few more hours to get home. So, you know, if in doubt, chew a tuber. It's now nearly 11 at night. Still plenty of daylight as it's midsummer. But yeah, it's got to the point that my body's kind of rejecting the tubers now. Tried to chew one there and it just made me gag. And I was just like, you know what? I can't chew any more tubers. There's a limit of how many tubers you can chew in a day. Never stop appreciating food. By the time we got to camp, I was so knackered I couldn't even eat. I was feeling too sick to even eat, so I've just been sleeping. I had a good like 9-10 hours sleep, which was amazing. But now, it's time to properly break the fast. But I'm completing my fantasy. Baked beans and cheese on toast. Oh yeah. So, the bitter vetch tubers myth-busting debrief. Well, this tuber experiment was just meant to be a kind of side experiment as I was doing a natural navigation challenge, but it actually turned out to be pretty challenging. I definitely would not recommend fasting for 36 hours and doing a 12-hour hike across rough terrain. The things I do for historical science. This one was definitely erring on the side of stupidity. But what's the conclusion? Huh? Are these a forgotten Highlander superfood? This experiment has made me think a lot about where we actually feel hunger, because there's a mental aspect of it. There's an actual like feeling in your stomach, but then there's also like the energy feeling, the feeling of feeling drained, kind of a foggy head, sometimes a sore head. In the short term, in the mental aspect of hunger, and potentially a little bit in the physiology in the short term, you know, I would say in the window of 8 hours, yes, I think I was surprised by how well they worked. When I was starting to feel like a little bit peckish, when you're like, oh yeah, I could really be chewing on something now, then just giving something to chew on and a taste, and the taste does really linger. Some of those quotes say how the taste lingers in your mouth. It does, it lingers for a long time. I guess when I still had glycogen in my muscles, I did notice that it did slightly repel my hunger for, you know, an hour or two, and then my body would be like, oh man, I'm pretty hungry again, and I could chew in another one. However, when you're walking long distance, if you're fasting, if you're not eating anything else, then of course you come across just the reality that our body needs calories, and there is no magical cure. And these are definitely no magical cure for actually giving you energy. So all in all, I'm really happy I tried out this experiment. I've been wanting to do it for a while. I'm happy I have discovered these tubers for the first time. And actually, once you recognize the plant, it's actually, it's growing in more places than I expected. But with that said, always remember folks, if you are going to try this, forage carefully, make sure you know what you're foraging, forage sustainably. Don't be over harvesting this, because it's also not super common either. Now, thanks so much for watching. If you want to continue the learning journey, check out my online school, Resilient Roots, where we're doing monthly live calls and fun challenges and discussions, and then we do annual gatherings here in the woods. If you enjoy my work and want to help support it, consider becoming a Patreon. There on the Patreon page, it's the best way to support the channel. You get access to reading lists and behind the scenes content. And yeah, it just keeps this channel free from interruptions from sponsors, which is very important to me. And I hope folks out there appreciate that. Thanks for joining me on this fun Highland myth-busting experiment. Our ancestors definitely knew a bit more about the environment than we do today. And that's always important to remember. Happy foraging, folks. And I'll see you in the next video. Cheery bye.